Hello, everybody. Welcome to the next session on communications research. In the previous session, we were discussing about what research is, what are the various areas of research, what are the various phases of research, and how research is carried out in print media. Now we are going to look at all the other media like the electronic media or advertising, so on and so forth. Talking about the electronic media, what are the various kinds of researches that can be done in electronic media? One is the ratings research. We all know the race for getting more ratings existent between the channels. So one kind of research is on which channel gets maximum ratings and what is the reason for it. Why is a certain channel, news channel, liked better by the people as compared to the others? So that is about the ratings research. The other is market studies. When we talk about market, we all have to understand that media provides us with some kind of product. And this product is not a tangible product. Nevertheless, it has a certain market for it. So a certain channel or certain kinds of channels are seen by a certain section of people. Every business wants to expand that market. So there are certain market studies which also form a part of electronic media research. Thirdly, there is sales research. We always have a need in media channels to sell out our spots for advertising. And greater the people advertising with a channel, the more popular a channel will be. So sales research is also an aspect. Besides that, this field of research in electronic media also talks about diversification studies. Diversification studies essentially means all those areas and all those market segments which are different from each other and yet have to be brought together. So one cannot, in these days of competition, no media is in a position to leave out a certain section of the population and not attend to them. So diversification and how diversified the content is, how plural the content is, how much is it meeting the needs of various segments of the audiences is also important to study, and that forms a part of research in electronic media. Important aspect of content. We analyze the content, we try to see what kind of content is being served, how is it having an impact or effect on the brains, on the minds of the audiences. This forms content studies. Having spoken of electronic media, when we look at advertising and public relations, the various kinds of researches that are done in this field of advertising and public relations includes copy research. Copy is the basic content that is actually going to the audiences. This can be in the form of an advertisement or, a punchline. All of it together forms copy. So the visual, the punchline, the way logo is placed, everything in totality is the copy. So there is a testing of effectiveness of this copy of advertisement, which also includes the cognitive dimension as well as the affective dimension. Cognitive is what you can remember, what you can understand, how you interpret it, and affective is when you put it to some use. If you saw the ad of a certain brand X car, are you going to make your purchase decision when it comes to buying your car? So that is what we understand by affective dimension. So researches are being done on both of them. Then there is media research, which is testing the reach and frequency of advertisements. And it is also looking at the competitors' activities. Are we doing any better than our competition? Because that will decide how big a share of the market will we have. So this also comprises research of advertising as well as public relations. When we're talking about public relations, it will largely have some kind of basic research about an agency or a government body or a company. What kind of an image does it enjoy, or what kind of a shareholder base does it have? What are the various kinds of publics it have, and what is it that strengthens this brand or this company against the others? And then there are also certain kind of applied researches which will look into the strategies of public relations and corporate communications that a company or a brand might follow. It can look into what kind of campaigns are being run, to build more goodwill, to create a better image, or to create an understanding of the product or service that a brand has to offer. Then, of course, there is also evaluation research. When we talk about evaluation research, it is to look at the various ways in which we have been trying to reach the audiences and whether these ways have been successful or not, whether these strategies of campaigns are good enough and are yielding results or not. So, this comprises evaluation research. Then we also have introspective research, whereby we try to look at what a company's perspective is about the kind of communication it has sent out, about the kind of activities it has carried out, and whether it is convinced that it is in the right direction. There is also environment monitoring. Like these days, everybody talks about sustainability. People talk of green efforts. What do you do so as to ensure that there are no carbon footprints that are left, the environment is being taken care of, and that your effort to communicate is sustainable? Okay, so this calls for public relations research. Another is PR audit. So, what kind of communication efforts have been made? The auditing of these efforts in terms of the kind of input that has gone into it, money, resources, time wise, and the kind of output that has been obtained for it. That is your PR audit. And then there are also communication audits. Similar to PR audit, like PR focuses only on a few basic things like the strategy, the evaluation, or the image, and goodwill building, etc. Communication on the whole talks of many other terms. Communication is a bigger umbrella term. So audits of communication are also done. And social audit is when you are looking at the audit of a company from the point of view of the environment of which it is a part, or the society of which it is a part, whether it is, hampering the progress of that society by maybe not following environmental rules or not doing its activities in a more sustainable manner, or whether it is building up upon that community of which it is a part by corporate social responsibility efforts or any such other efforts that it is bound to do from time to time. Then we talk about research in media effects, and media effects, like I said, that media affects people in multiple ways. And all these ways can either have antisocial effects on people or pro-social effects. So media content and how it is responsible for creating either antisocial or pro-social effects on the audiences is important to research and understand. Uses gratification, this again emanates from the theory of uses and gratification. How is this new media being put to good use in order to satisfy the various needs that are there with any audiences? So uses and the gratification which is sought by the audience by using that medium is important to understand. Then, of course, there is agenda setting. We all understand that there are various agenda that media promulgates or it tries that they do not come up. So, how is this agenda setting done? In political scenario as compared to a non-political scenario, in a social scenario, in the subcultural context, how is it that agenda is being set by the media? This is also an important aspect of study. From the time this theory came till date, people are researching on it. And then cultivation of perspectives and perceptions of social reality. We all understand that reality is not what is real. Reality is what is perceived. And who builds this perception? Media builds this perception. If media is building this perception, how is this perception being cultivated and promulgated amongst the audiences? That is one aspect of research. Then we also talk about advertising and socialization of children. The more the gadgets in our life, the less the children go out to play, the less the children interact with others in the society. So advertising is one area, as well as socialization of children is one area that we have to focus on. People are focusing, researchers are working on these areas currently. Now we come to determining a relevant topic. When we talk about determining a relevant topic, we have to see whether the topic is broad enough. You are doing a research in your own locality, or are you talking about a broader perspective of the city, of the society, or the community as such? Then, can the problem really be investigated? Now, there can be a problem, the solution to which will not come, because you will not be able to understand completely. Now, say for example, if you think that a certain social networking platform is affecting the youth in an adverse manner more than others, we do not know how much is the youth that is a part of your sample looking at the other platforms of social media. So you will not be able to say whether this particular social media has impacted them adversely more as compared to others. Okay, so whether the problem can really be investigated, can we really come to important, authentic conclusions of the objectives that we set out for, is important to understand when you're taking up a topic. The third important concept is that whether the data is susceptible to analysis or not. At times, you come across so much data which may not combine together to form a useful meaning. So it is important to understand that the data should be susceptible to analysis. An analysis of what? An analysis to the objectives or the questions that we had set for ourselves initially. Then is the problem significant? Sometimes if you're only looking at a so small a problem or so minuscule a problem that it does not hold good for the larger society, the problem may not be significant. What will be the result? We'll be able to do sound research, but it will not have any applicability. It will not add to the knowledge bank. It will not be of much use to the society for which you're doing your research, and hence the resources will be wasted. So these are some of the considerations that you must keep in mind. Some additional considerations are, can the result of the study be generalized? When I say generalized, actually mean is being implemented, and the kind of result that is coming out from a study in, say, for example, the national capital, Delhi. Is it the same as what it is coming in Bombay or in any other important Bangalore or any other important city of the country? Is it replicable? Can it be generalized? Can we say that, yes, the youth of metropolitan cities of India are like this? Okay. The study, it is important that the study should be able to generalize its findings. Then what cost and time is involved in the analysis? That is important to understand, because that is always a constraint. Whether you are doing an academic research, which you're doing on on your own, or whether it is through an advertising agency or a research agency that you're doing it. So time and cost constraints need to be measured well in advance. Then is the planned approach appropriate to the project? If you're trying to study, say for example, what is the leaning of housewives towards TV channels as compared to OTT platforms, you will have to see whether you are taking the right approach to study that or not. So the approach or the methodology, whether it is working on the objectives or not, is important to gauge. Then are there any potential harm to the subjects? Say for example, you carry on a longitudinal study whereby you are subjecting children to violent films from time to time to study their behavior with respect to violent videos. Probably in after a gap of 5 years that you've conducted your study for, after 5 years you will see that violence has become a normal thing for children. Why? Because their exposure to violent videos was so much because of a study. So is there a reason of any kind of potential harm to the subjects? Is something that you should know well in advance before you have devised your topic. Having spoken of how to come up with a topic, we have now got to look on the review of literature. Now, there is already some existing literature in the field that you're going to study. So say, for example, social media and the psychological effects of social media. People already know and people already are working on various aspects of social media and how their psyche is being impacted by it. So you have to go through what has already been done. We cannot reinvent the fire again and again. So what has been done, how it has been done, what methods have been followed, to what extent has the outcome been met. And after you have done this, you come across a gap in study. That gap in study becomes your objective. Now, the most important step in research process is this review of literature. Why? Because it helps you facilitate your learning from the previous research, as well as it saves upon your time and effort because you don't need to reinvent the wheel again and again. Now, when you are doing this review of literature, looking at what sort of studies have already been done in this field, you need to ask a few questions. Like, what type of research has already been done in this area? What has been found in the previous studies? And suggestions made by other researchers for further study. The end of every research work is marked by limitations of the study, and future scope. Now, these are important to look at because that is what is going to provide you with some gap in the study. That is what the researcher herself or himself is going to provide through the research. So this is an important bearing of literature review. Which aspects have not been investigated? How can the proposed study add to our knowledge bank in the area? Which research methods were used in the previous studies? The answers to these questions will help in defining a hypothesis, which we will be discussing next, or formulate your research questions. Looking at the hypothesis or research questions, what is a hypothesis? A hypothesis basically is an informed guess, to talk about it very broadly. Hypothesis also, why do we call it an informed guess? Because it is only after review of literature, only after studying the already existing literature that you come to a conclusion that this topic can be investigated. So, hypothesis is basically a formal statement regarding the relationship between the variables and is tested directly. What do I mean by that? When I'm looking at the relationship of variables, is there, a connect? Or is there a relationship between gender and online learning? Is it that more women learn better through online, or is it that more boys learn through online? So the relationship between variables, here we have two variables, one is gender and the other is online learning. So dependent and independent variables will be there. We need to look at their relationships. The cause-effect relationship between variables will help us define our hypothesis. And this hypothesis will be tested directly once we have collected our data, analyzed it. During the analysis phase, we will test the hypothesis. Now, emerging from hypothesis is the research questions. Earlier, we used to have only hypothesis. Now, we have research questions which may or may not carry the hypothesis. Now, what are these research questions? The research questions are formally stated questions which will provide indication about something. It is not limited to investigating the relationship between variables, and it is used when the researcher is unsure about the nature of problem under investigation. It helps in gathering preliminary data, and there are testable hypotheses that get developed from research question phase. So when you are looking at questions, is there a plausible connect between gender and online learning? That is a research question. Hypothesis could be, there is no direct connection between gender and online learning. This hypothesis can be proved either right or wrong, so positive or negative. And we always begin with null hypothesis, NO, which is that there is no connect, or we do not know whether there is a connect or not. So research questions are broad questions out of which you will, which come out of the objectives. So research questions are the questions, the answers to which you will find at the end of your research work. Now, I hope with that you have figured out how to come up with a topic, how to do literature review in a certain area, and how to frame your hypothesis or research questions. Further steps of research will be taken care of in the next session of communication research. So stay with us, and I'm sure that learning excites thought. So you keep thinking, try researching, and happy learning. Thank you.